ध्यायेत् शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणेश्वरं गुरुवरं योगासनाध्यासितं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षादात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा चिन्वता मज्जत पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। Namo Ramana. We will commence today's Atma Vichara by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesha. We are reading from Self-Enquiry 1900 to 1935, compilation of all the questions and answers on the subject of Atma Vichara by our founder President Sri R. Natarajanji. The question today that has been blessed is about Atma Vichara. The devotee asks, during the enquiry, should I repeat mentally the questions who am I, just like the japa or a mantra again and again, with feeling and understanding of the same, or ask them once or twice only in the beginning, and then concentrate the mind on the source of the ego, the heart, and on the efforts to prevent occurrence of worldly thoughts and doubts. I repeat the question. During the enquiry, should I repeat mentally the questions who am I, just like the japa or a mantra again and again, with feeling and understanding of the same, or ask them once or twice only in the beginning, and then concentrate the mind on the source of the ego, the heart, and on the effort to prevent occurrences of worldly thoughts and doubts. Bhagavan answers, Japa of who am I is not correct. Put the question once only and then concentrate on finding the source of the ego and preventing occurrences of thoughts. Bhagavan says, Japa of who am I is not correct. Put the question once only and then concentrate on finding the source of the ego and preventing occurrences of thoughts. Though the question here has been put, should one prevent occurrences of worldly thoughts and doubts? Bhagavan is very clearly saying here, preventing occurrences of thoughts. That means even thoughts about whether I am doing the enquiry right, everything one should prevent. Rather, one should completely concentrate on finding the source of the ego. The source of the ego should be the only focus, and one need not put any weightage on the occurrences of any kind of thoughts. All thoughts should be inquired to whom is this, and who am recognize it is for me. Thereupon, who am I? And when the question who am I is put, it is not like a japa, but it is an pointer or a trigger to concentrate on finding the source of the ego. That is what Bhagavan is saying. So all thoughts is only repeatedly subjected to vichara. Vichara here essentially is to find the source of the ego. Vichara is not on the thoughts that occur. If there are thoughts that come when we are doing vichara, we are not going to doubt or do vichara on the thought itself. Rather, we are going to only focus on concentrating our effort at the source of the ego. That is the real vichara. This is what Bhagavan is telling through this. And therefore, if we concentrate on the doubts that we get when we do vichara, that becomes like attending to the occurrence of thoughts. Bhagavan is saying we should prevent that. We should not do that. Therefore, the mind, the intellect faculty is not used. Rather, the pure attention is given to focus on the source of the ego. Bhagavan brings out this very beautifully in his death experience. In Madurai, he says that I laid down without any thought. I only concentrated and everything became vivid, very clear. The attention was only to find out what dies and what happens in death. So by that he was very clear of him being the personality, and that personality is different from even the body. And further, that personality is also nothing but the self, the deathless one. When the personality alone is focused, it takes us to the root of it, which is the self, and which is neither born nor something which goes through death. So it was the awareness which exists at all times. And further, he says there was a fascination that developed towards that awareness, which is the most important thing, which is repeatedly diving back into that self, repeatedly attending only to the self. That is the further part that came out of his death experience. That is the most important thing. Our repeated self abidance, just being the self itself, the awareness itself, the existence itself, does a lot of good by cutting out all these. Rather, the prevention of the thoughts and all doesn't come into picture. More and more we concentrate on the self, because we see that self is free of it here and now, of everything. It is having no doubts. It is having no effort making thing. There is nothing to know. It alone is. We become more and more clear of the self, the nature of the self, the more we concentrate on the self itself. And for that, Bhagavan has given the Atma Vichara, the straight path. So he has given every question as an opportunity, to every thought as an opportunity to concentrate on the self alone. It is like a thought is the awareness of a thought occurring is like a trigger for us to recognize that we are moved away from our natural state, which is the self, which is neither trying to attend nor trying to avert. It is just there as a pure light which recognizes a thought has come, a thought is staying, a thought goes away. It is just a pure light which is aware of it. Awareness is like always there, substratum. Things come and go, and to remain in the awareness is the real sadhana, that is the real abidance in the self. In order to achieve that, if at all there is a thought, and instead of in the usual regular sadhana in any other path, we feel we have to subdue the thought, we need to fight the thought, we need to, I got lost in the thought, we get little troubled, disturbed, that there are a lot of thoughts and things like that. Whereas in Atma Vichara, what happens? Bhagavan, in every which way, whatever is those weaknesses that in other path we think that it should not occur, Bhagavan says that can be utilized as a trigger to concentrate back on the self. So Bhagavan has turned everything, whatever is naturally occurring in the life, Bhagavan is a master in making use of that as an opportunity to focus on the self. Even in when he says pranayama, Bhagavan says just concentrate on the natural flow of breath in and out, that with that the mind quietens. From there, inquire to whom is this and get back to the self. So everything is very, very natural in Bhagavan's sadhana path. So here too, Bhagavan is saying there is this natural awareness, which is the substratum, which is always present. Whereas these thoughts, they keep coming and going. Rather than we focus on the thoughts, we put our concentration on the source, the substratum, and remain with that. And by repeatedly being there, Bhagavan assures the mind will gain enough strength to remain at the source. In due course, what ends up happening is thoughts may come, they play their role and go. One becomes very clear that one is the self, where there has never been a time when there is any thought that occurred. There is never going to be a time where thoughts are occurring. So one becomes very clear, very identified with that self that one is, which never goes through any change, but rather shreds its light uniformly. The natural, as God is uniformly spreading light on everything in this universe, so is the self, which is the self of everyone, is shredding the light on everything, whether it is a thought or whether there is no thought. It shreds the light equally. It doesn't say this state of thought is very good or this state of no thought is very good. It simply shreds the light on both equally, and that is our real state. That is a natural state. It's the effortless state. It is not a state which we have to hold on or cling on. It is our natural state. Only we should repeatedly get acquainted with it. Rather, like the way we are acquainted with the thoughts and we feel very comfortable when they are coming and going right now, we in the due course will get acquainted to the self, which is free, which is also available at the same time when the thoughts are occurring too. So it's just a question of focusing our attention on the object to the subject. So if we just change the paradigm, then we are in the self. There is nothing to worry, there is nothing to attain. We are the self and we are already very much there. So the only attention, the concentration is to always focus on the source of the ego. That is what Bhagavan is saying here. With the immense grace of Bhagavan, for the next 15 minutes, let us if put our attention only on the source, the self, which alone is. More and more we practice, we see that all the objects get merged in that self, and the self alone is shining. And with His grace, let us do Atma Vichara for the next 15 minutes. Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana, prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. We are eager to abide as that self. We want to experience the bliss of the self. And why are we practicing self inquiry? To be able to experience the bliss of the self. Uh, the But what happens in self inquiry? There are two ways, we are told. Nandakumarji often tells us that we could either have the process of at looking at the thoughts, asking for whom the thoughts are, and if the thoughts as a thought arises, to ask, for whom is this thought? And then to say, when the answer comes, the thought is for me, to ask, who am I? And the mind will become silent because there is no answer to that question. But the other possibility is, he says, to hold on directly to the Spurana, to hold on directly to the self. Just be, says Bhagavan. What is it that prevents us from doing so? See, we are only asked to address thoughts because when we are trying to hold on, when we are trying to abide as a self, when we want to be, what happens is thoughts rise. So, when thoughts rise, what do we want to do? We immediately have to address the thoughts. We have to stop the thought from rising in one way or the other. In a dhyana, we simply try to drop the thought. In some way, we have to get back to the self. That is the point. Now, why does a thought arise in the first place? If we are convinced that the entire goal of life, that bliss is only in the self, bliss is not anywhere other than the self, no object is the source of happiness. If we are convinced about this, if we have total faith in the fact that the source of happiness and the only source of happiness is the self, and that we want happiness, that we want to be happy, if we are convinced about that, why would a thought arise in the first place? A thought arises only because there is a habit that we have of thinking that happiness lies in an object, and for attaining the object, action is necessary. We need to act, we need to move towards the goal and be able to procure, possess the goal. Because we are convinced, we are habituated to acting in order to attain a result. Therefore, we believe that to attain anything, I have to act. I have to perform some action, and then the result will come to me. And for performing that action, I need the presence of thoughts. Thought is the primary action. When I want to go somewhere, first I get a thought that I need to go somewhere. I have to go to the heritage center. The thought arises in my mind. Then I follow it up with the next thought. How am I to go to the heritage center? Maybe I can call for a taxi, I can call for my driver, whatever it is. I have to ask my driver to come at that time when I need to go to the heritage center. Right? I make all these plans and thoughts come to my mind. And then further thoughts sometimes come, like what if the driver is not available, etc., which we label as unwanted thoughts. And sometimes that, is it better to sit at home? Is it better to go to the heritage center? All these we may call unwanted thoughts. But we think that, we believe that the primary thoughts, right, related to that action, I need to go to the heritage center, and for that I need to call my driver. All these thoughts are very much required. We believe that. We believe that these thoughts are necessary in order to enable us to act, and actions are necessary in order to attain the results of the action, and the results of the actions are necessary because they are the source of happiness for us. Otherwise, where is the need to think? For what purpose are we thinking? What is the purpose of thoughts? If there is no purpose to thoughts, the self being bliss, and it being our own nature, and it being ever available, And if we are certain that our goal is only to be in bliss, remain in bliss all the time, and we also know that the only thing that obstructs us is the rise of thought, why on earth would we be thinking? Why on earth do we think at all? It is because of our conviction that we can attain something through the process of thinking and through the actions. Actually, thought is primary action is thought. Secondary action is the with the mind. The first action is thought. We first begin our action with thought in the thought form, and then it manifests in the physical form. And we believe that we need to do something, including about our getting self knowledge. We need to do something. We need to practice. We need to practice self inquiry. We need to give time and attention to it. That's what we believe. Anything. If I need to look after my health, I need to take some steps for it. That's what I believe. I do not believe that I can be happy simply being. And since we are in this manner conditioned to put our faith in action, Bhagavan, in his great compassion, undermines the faith in action. In his Upadesha Saram, he says, how come you have so much faith in action? Do you not know that the results are not in your hands? Karturagnyaya prapyate phalam. The results which you are seeking are not in your hands. They are in the hands of the Supreme. Kanmam payantaral kartanadu aanayal. It is because of the order of the Supreme One that the actions are producing results. It is not because you are acting. It is not the power of your action to give you what you want. Karturagya prapyate phalam, the fruit of the action is coming to you because of the divine ordainment alone. So, the fruit of the action. What is the fruit of the action? We often think that Taturanya Prapyate Phalam means, oh, I can perform an action, I can practice, I can sit and practice my music. And then on the day of the performance, I am not sure, first of all, whether my throat will be good or whether I will remember the words which I have practiced or whether the program itself will happen or will not happen or will get cancelled due to some reason. All this is in the hands of the divine, whereas the present, my practice, my karma, I have the freedom to do. That's what I think. So I think, okay, let me do the right action, let me perform the right action, then the fruits of that action will automatically follow because it is the order of the divine, and when they automatically follow, I will become happy. And in this manner, first of all, I postpone my happiness to the point of attaining the end result of my actions, whereas happiness is available to me here and now as my very self. But I don't want it. I want to get that happiness which I will have at the end of my actions. I believe only that will give me happiness. And the phalam, what is the phalam? Say, I have to sing. So as I say, going back to the same example, if I have to sing a song and I went, I performed beautifully, I sang very well, the program happened, my throat was good, everything happened. But I don't know, for some reason that day, my mind was somewhat disturbed from the morning. No reason at all. Mind can be disturbed at any point of time. That's the nature of the mind. It doesn't really need a reason to be disturbed. It can find a reason to be disturbed. So it has found some reason and it is disturbed. So though the singing went well, though the program happened, though everyone praised me, I'm still not happy. So the phalam, the supreme phalam of happiness, I did not get. Because it was not Kattagnya, then I should say that I should get the happiness phalam. So when it is not at all in my hands to get the result, secondly, I imagine that I can perform the actions to get the result. But what is this action that I am performing now? I am speaking. That I am speaking, is it a karma or is it in itself a phala of my earlier karma? The fact that I am speaking now, what I call my present effort, is it in itself the start of an action or is it the fruit of an earlier action? Am I not speaking because I went to school? Because I learned the English language? And because there was enough ability in me at that time and now of course, but then also, is not every present moment a fruit of an earlier action? So how can we say that even the present action is done by us? Where do we have the freedom to do the present action? If phala is in the hands of the divine, then even every present moment, every action that we perform, being a phala of an earlier action that we have performed, this moment's action is not done by me. It is done according to the ajna of Kartu, of Ishvara, of the Supreme One. It is because of the Supreme One's ordainment that I am able to have this fruit of my present action. So, all the actions which are happening are only by the ordainment of the divine. That's what Bhagavan is trying to tell us. So we cannot depend on action as my action, which will give me any result. If all the actions are as per the ordainment of the divine, and this is something which he has told Mother Aragamma also, Bhagavan has told us, அவரவர் பிராப்த பிரகாரம் அதற்கானவன் ஆங்காங்கிருந்து ஆட்டுவிப்பான். Why does he say? Because if it is Karturagniya Prapyate Phalam, everything that is happening in this moment being a product of so much of the past, some past known and some much of the past probably unknown, the entire action of the present moment is just happening by the ordainment of the divine. So, what is this action actually? It is Jada, says Bhagavan. It is actually lifeless. It is like an instrument. The action is an instrument which is used. This phala of this moment is ordained by God to give me another phala of the next moment. So the action is just a mechanism which is just moving. We could probably say it is for the divine purpose. It is like Rama's arrow. It has started. In a way, it could be imagined as a series of arrows. See, the one arrow goes and it hits the phala. The phala in turn becomes another arrow. That becomes another action. That goes and hits another phala. So it's just a series of Rama Banas. It has nothing to do with us. It's just a series of things happening. So it's God's power, which is just manifesting. We don't have to do anything about anything. We don't have to do. We are not doing anything about anything. It is just an imagination that we are doing something. When we don't apply the inquiry of who am I, when we don't question this identity, it rises and says, I am doing this, and I need to do this, for what? To become happy. After all, it's only to become happy, right? None of us are doing something in order to be sad. That we are all in agreement with. We are quite of the idea that we are doing something in order to be happy. So we think that we can do something in order to be happy, but what if we recognize that we nothing is being done by us? Then what is my role? This is my problem. If everything is divine, then what is my role? Should I choose to sit quiet? If I choose to sit quiet, then that choice will be an action. See, every thought is an action. If I choose to move in a particular direction, that is an action. If I choose to sit quiet, that is also an action. If I choose not to do something, that is also an action. If I choose not to go to a cinema but to go to the heritage center, that is an action. That is a choice. Every choice is an action. So, there is no question of saying that I will choose not to do something. In fact, that choice is also not mine, right? If all is happening according to Ishvara Agnya, if every movement, what is action? Action is movement. In fact, thought is defined as vritti. Vrittayo manaha, Bhagavan says in again in Upadesha Saram. So vritti, what is vritti? Vritti actually means movement. Movement from what to what? Movement from one position to a desirable position. Because a desire is there. Action is there only because a desire is there. When there is no desire, where is the question of there being any action? There will be no action because there is nothing to be attained. That is what we are saying. No, Bhagavan, he is Sarvaranga Parityagi. He doesn't start anything. He doesn't have any need to start anything. So we are starting things. Every thought is a beginning. It is an aramba. Why is there an aramba? The aramba is towards a desired goal. If I understand that all goals have already been attained by the self, the joy which I get, if at all I get at the end of achieving a goal, that joy is also springing only from the self. That joy is not going to be coming from that point of time by that attainment. And I am neither going to make myself happy, neither do I have the capacity to make myself happy through my actions, nor do I have the capacity to make anyone else in the world happy through my actions, because happiness is the nature of the self. It cannot come because of the result. So, Ishvara Agneya Prapyate Phalam, the very phalam of understanding the self, the bliss of the self has to manifest. That's also Ishvara Agnya. That end of that action, the phalam of bliss has to be attained. It has to come by Ishvara Agnya. I cannot do anything. I need not do anything. Do I simply just then watch what all is happening? That is a question which may come to our minds. It's very simply, if I can't do anything, because everything is happening by the Lord's power alone. Every phalam is Lord's, and every moment is a phalam. So everything is happening by Rama. So supposing Rama Bana, everything is like a Rama Bana. Do I simply watch the Rama Bana going? I don't have to watch it. I don't have to watch it. The bana will go. Whether I watch it or not, also it will go. Whether I watch my thought or not, it will. If the thought is nothing to do with me, if it is if it is the mechanism of the Lord, if it is the power of the Lord, just as my hand moves by the power of the Lord, if the mind moves by the power of the Lord, and I have nothing to do with it, because it is Chittirama Mikdellam Semmale Ninpale Udidamai Nindre Odugidamal. Bhagavan said this entire world picture is arising in you, Arunachala. It is sustained in you and it merges back into you when everything is happening by that power and only by that power. What is my role? What do I have to do? Do I have to remain as a witness to that power? Even that is not required. That power does not need me as a witness in order to perform its whatever it has to perform. The story is already written, it's getting unfolded. I may watch and enjoy it, but I don't have to. And I don't have to think that my joy comes from watching it. That again will make it into an object. If I think I am not the doer, but I understand Bhagwan is the doer. All actions are his. Every action, whether it's a physical action or a mental action, every action is his. All movement is his. The Shakti is his and his alone. There is no Shakti apart from that because this is Jada. The body is Jada. We know that it is, has to be animated by the Chetana. What about thought? That is also Jada. It is called Sukshma Sharira. The mind is called a Sukshma Sharira. That's also Jada. Unless lighted by the self, what is there in a thought? What can it do? It cannot rise, it cannot sustain itself. It, nothing will be there. There won't be any thought. It is lighted by the self. So it is Jada. Okay. It's all just a robo. It's all just a mechanism. So this need to watch it also would be a need. I could watch a thought arise, I could watch it subside, I could watch it do its action, and I could watch it subside, but what is the need to do that? So all that I need to do, if there is an I to do something, is to abide in the self. Everything else, if at all it is there or not there, if it is there, it's happening automatically. This is the automatic divine action which is happening. If there is a world, then the world is happening automatically by the divine action. So, when I recognize that every action is by the divine, and what is the what do I need to do? I can remember this and drop the action and get back to remaining in the self. Every time I remember that a part action is not going to really give me happiness, because happiness is not out there, happiness is not in the result, happiness is my own nature. But if I'm habituated towards thinking and I must act, then I must remember that I don't even have the power to act. So, if happiness had been the end result of actions, it would have been impossible for us to experience happiness because it's totally out of our control. But by God's grace, happiness is our own nature and it cannot be denied. It cannot be denied except by our illusion that it is far away, except by our illusion that we need to attain it sometime, somewhere. So, what do we have to do about attaining it? This question is also not relevant because there is nothing to be done. But it is taught to us, the method is taught to us because of our addiction to action. So, until we act and act and act and act, and the mind keeps on acting and completely tires itself out, it will not come to a rest. It will not stop. It will want to act. It wants to act. It wants to rise. It wants to move towards a goal. So Bhagavan says, okay, I'm giving you self-inquiry. I'm giving you self-inquiry. Question. Give it the activity of questioning. If you must move, give it the activity of questioning. Otherwise, don't move at all. Because the first primary action is the action of rising and attaching oneself to the sense of I am this body. This is what Bhagavan calls the I thought, the primary action. So, then that Bhagavan says happens in the point of the cusp between waking and sleep, or the cusp between two thoughts, that happens, and we can be aware of it, and we can capture it there and ask, who is this I, if at all it has risen, if at all, because Bhagavan clearly says it, Ashtakam, if there are no thoughts, don't bother. If you are avoiding this, don't bother about anything, just be, just be. Afterwards, what will happen to the world? What will happen to various activities? Why should we be bothered about that? Why should we be bothered about any of these things? After all, we are bothered about it only in order that everyone should be happy or we should be happy. And when happiness is not out there, it is only in the self. No amount of goodies showered on anybody can give them happiness. No amount of wonderful things around in the world can give us happiness. Nothing can give us happiness because it's not there, it's not outside. It has to be experienced as the self alone. So, when we are convinced of this, and if at all the mind rises, we can cajole it back to the self by telling the mind, no point because you're not capable, you're not doing anything. You are not there at all in the first place, but if at all, the action is not yours. The fruit is not yours, the action is also not yours because the action is also another fruit. So it is not yours at all in the first place. What is not yours, don't keep on hankering after that. Get back to what is yours. The self that is yours, that is you yourself. Nobody can take it away, nobody will find fault with you, nobody will say, why have you done this? How have you taken it? How can you enjoy this? This doesn't belong to you. Nobody can find annilai ellarkum oppam. It is acceptable to all, it is acceptable to everyone. There can be no two thoughts about it. So, to surrender the need for action as we keep on surrendering the need for action by recognizing the source of the action. Whence am I? So, if I am from that source, then everything else is obviously from that source. When I myself am not an independent entity, when my entire Shakti comes from that source, the self, what else am I capable of doing? What else happens because of me when I am not an independent entity? When I only rise from the self. So let us remember this and get back, take the support of Bhagwan's words to get back to the inquiry and abide as the self. And remember that even the inquiry is His, everything is His. The inquiry is His, the fruit of the inquiry is His, and we are free. We don't have to do anything. He says you are totally free to be the child of bliss. Just be the child of bliss. That's all. I am giving you this bliss. Ida, enjoy it, simply revel in it, simply enjoy it. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तम् गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरम् चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि नमो नमः. Thank you.